There is every type of person in the world, and when we say every type, we also take into account the weird and creepy people who are just too mysterious. Over the centuries, history has been filled with wonderful tales of mysterious people, many of whom are never identified. But let us tell you about the most mysterious people to exist. It's very much likely that you know some of these mysterious people yourself, but they will be nothing compared to ones on this list. But before we get into that, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Number 10. The woman who lives like she's in the Victorian era. Let's start with the love story of a couple. Sarah Chrisman got a corset from her husband on her 29th birthday. She says that the old-fashioned garment changed her life. She was inspired by the corset and began to dress that way exclusively. These days, she and her husband, Gabriel, are committed to living as Victorian life as possible, within modern-day constraints. She washes with a pitcher and basin every day, sews all her clothes herself, that too from natural fibers, doesn't drive a car, and uses oil lamps for most of the lighting in their Victorian home. She even cooks food that was eaten in the 19th century. They currently use a refrigerator to store their food, but are hoping to switch to an icebox for even more authenticity down the line. She has even written a book called Victorian Secrets: What a Corset Taught Me About the Past, the Present, and Myself. That is a long name for a book. Number 9. The Man with Two Hearts. This Italian man wasn't born with two hearts. He got an extra one during a surgery many years ago. Yep, you heard that right. The 71-year-old was admitted to the hospital due to what was thought to be a typical cardiac arrest case, but doctors soon discovered that his situation was very different from anything they'd seen before. As it turns out, the man had acquired his second heart during a heterotopic transplant, meaning that the patient's original heart was merged with his new, healthier heart. The surgery went well. In fact, too well. The man had developed two independent heart rhythms, and both organs actually stopped when doctors tried to administer drugs to try to get their rhythms to work in sync again. But luckily, a defibrillator helped restart both hearts, and the man was able to go back to his normal life after returning from the brink of death. Having two hearts must be pretty fascinating. Number 8. Biggest Jesus fan. This is an example of extreme love, but not with a partner. 60-year-old Lindsay Hammond has spent the past 26 years of his life carrying a giant crucifix all around the world and talking about Jesus to anyone who will listen. Believe it or not, he has literally carried his faith on his shoulders, trekking across 19 countries, including New Zealand, Romania, India, and Sri Lanka. The cross itself is made of cedar wood and measures 12 feet tall by 6 feet wide. It has a wheel at its base to make it easier to drag around, and he actually carries it over his shoulder for up to 12 hours a day without having the faintest idea of where he'll spend the night. During the course of his amazing journey, he's had some truly spectacular moments, as well as some pretty rough ones. He was shot at in Bangladesh and thrown out of Rome. Hammond took up the mission of carrying the huge cross around the world in 1987, and he's rarely put it down ever since. The father of two and part-time care worker receives donations from supporters that help him stay committed to his role as a Christian evangelist. But he does need to stop at his hometown in Cornwall every once in a while to work and pay his family's bills. We don't know how they let him carry that huge cross in airports. Number 7. Mr. Eat-It-All. Over the course of 40 years, Frenchman Michael Lotito ate an estimated 9 tons of metal. How did he do so? Well, in his youth, Lotito suffered from pica, a mental disorder in which people compulsively eat non-food items such as dirt or plastic. Once he started experimenting with more dangerous items, such as nails and glass, he learned that the incredibly thick lining of his stomach and intestines allowed him to consume almost anything. Soon, Lotito turned his affliction into a career and went down in history as the man who literally ate everything. He died in 2007 from natural causes unrelated to his eating habits. Number 6. The Poe Toaster. If you think you've had stalker problems, then know they're nothing compared to Poe's. His stalker won't even leave him in death. The Poe Toaster is the nickname given to a mysterious man who pays annual tribute to Poe by visiting his grave every year. This strange tradition started in 1949, a century after Poe's death, and it occurs every year on the author's birthday, January 19th. According to Wikipedia, in the early hours of the morning on that date, a black-clad figure with a silver-tipped cane enters the Westminster Hall and Burying Ground in Baltimore, Maryland. The individual proceeds to Poe's grave, where he or she raises a cognac toast. Before departing, the toaster leaves 3 red roses and half a bottle of cognac on the grave. The toaster wears a black hat and coat and hides his face with a hood or scarf. Groups of reporters and admirers are often on hand to watch the event. There have been no attempts to interfere with the toaster or to unmask them, most likely out of respect for the tradition. Number 5. The Man with an Extra Ear. The 69-year-old, who now lives in Melbourne, Australia, obviously he had to live in Australia, had an ear sculpted out of a biocompatible material surgically attached to his arm, and intends to have a microphone installed, which would broadcast what he was hearing. Except if he went somewhere with no Wi-Fi, obviously. It was a pretty big step up from his other performance art, which involved putting cameras in his lungs or hanging himself from hooks. The process of finding a surgeon willing to install the ear on his arm took all of 10 years, starting in 1996, and the first attempt failed due to an infection. After the second attempt, the process of blood vessels growing so the ear could fully fuse with his body took 6 months. The reason is that it's in a rather odd position on his forearm. Yeah, that's odd even by the standards of people who choose to have extra body parts installed. He was even told putting it on his head would be unsafe. Surprisingly, he claims that he often forgets that he has installed an extra ear on his arm, and that he wakes up in the morning and looks down at his arm. He's often surprised. Who wouldn't be surprised having an extra ear in their arm? It looks as weird as it sounds. Number 4. The Man Who Lives Like a Dog. This man simply lives his life like a dog. People who identify as animals are called furries. It's part of a subculture that first appeared in the United States in the 1980s. Furries believe that they're animals with human characteristics such as high intelligence, the ability to speak, walk on 2 legs, make facial expressions, and so on. Just like that, Gary Matthews thinks that he's a dog. The 48-year-old wears a dog collar, eats dog food from a bowl, his favorite is pedigree, and loves milk bones and dog cookies. The guy sleeps in his indoor doghouse, which, according to him, is much more comfortable than a human bed. He even barks, chases cars, and digs for bones in the backyard like any other canine. Dressing up in animal costumes is a hobby to most of them, but Boomer has taken it to the extreme, making his furry fandom the focus of his life. Number 3. Real-life Popeye. Let's talk about the person who has to live with the arms of a monster. Jeff Dabe is a real-life Popeye with 19-inch forearms. He was born in 1963, a happy, healthy little boy. Doctors couldn't find a single condition that would explain what would soon become increasingly clear. Dabe is a real-life Popeye. That little boy was born with unusually large hands that kept on growing with him, although there's no scientific explanation for it. Dabe has never really seen his unusual arms as a burden, and why should he? The remarkable limbs made joining the arm wrestling team in high school a breeze. In high school, he competitively arm wrestled, but after an injury, was forced to quit. Dabe's forearms have a 19-inch circumference, and each hand can hold an entire basketball. Now, at the age of 52, Jeff has decided to get back into arm wrestling and fulfill his dreams. Instead of competing with his injured right hand, he now just uses his left. And with that, it's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by one of our subscribers, so if you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it on over to us. We might even feature it on a future video. Number 2. Many people said that this photo was taken during a paranormal show in Japan. However, it turned out to be fake. The picture is photoshopped, and the real video was found, where it's clear that the girl just smiled for the camera. But there are people with extremely flexible body parts, so that's where the editor of this picture probably got the idea from.
I saved the best for last, but first, I have a quick challenge that takes only 5 seconds to complete. If you can leave a like and subscribe within the next 5 seconds, you'll get 10 years of amazing luck. Just try it, it really works.
Number 1. D.B. Cooper. Dan Cooper is widely known as D.B. Cooper and is a notorious aircraft hijacker who, on November 24, 1971, leapt from the back of a Boeing 727 aircraft as it was flying over the Pacific Northwest, somewhere over the Southern Cascades, after receiving a ransom payout of $200,000. Cooper has not been seen since, and it's not known whether he survived the jump. In 1980, an 8-year-old boy found $5,800 of soggy $20 bills washed up on the banks of the Columbia River. The serial numbers matched those of the ransom money, which had been noted to make it easier to track Cooper later. Cooper escaped from the plane by jumping off the rear air stair with a parachute, leading aviation authorities to add stricter measures about the design of planes to prevent it from happening again. Also, this event caused airports to install metal detectors for the first time. He is one of the most widely known robbers in America, and many people still believe that he's very much alive and living his life. That's our list of 10 people who've lived a mysterious life and are very strange. Who's the most mysterious person you've seen? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And as always, thanks for watching.